Hey guys, you found it. Welcome to the Fearless Pursuit of Freedom podcast. I am your host, Brandon Richards. I'm a real estate investor and avid entrepreneur based out of Flagstaff, Arizona. My wife and I run a real estate investment company, the OPF Group, and the brokerage, OPF Realty. We focus on land acquisitions across several states, flip and build homes, acquire and wholesale apartments, and we are now the proud owners of the real estate investor software, Deal Manager Pro. Deal Manager Pro is a real estate investor CRM that we are building based off of our 10 years of experience in the game. Listen in as I interview the nation's leading entrepreneurs and discuss the monumental battles of business and life. Hey guys, it's Brandon here again with the Fearless Pursuit of Freedom podcast, and today's guest is Adam Bergman. We're going to talk about IRAs today, and I love IRAs because this is the lifeblood of our real estate business is borrowing from IRAs and private money lenders. So, Adam, introduce yourself and tell us what you do, man.
Okay, well, Brent, thanks so much for having me on your podcast. Really excited to be in here. So my name's Adam. I'm a former tax attorney. I have a master's in tax law,
Wow.
and I worked at some of the largest law firms in the world in New York City for about 8 years as a tax associate. And I never knew that you can use your IRA to invest in real estate. I had no
Mhm.
idea. I was lucky enough, my almost ninth year working, I had a client that was a big hedge fund manager. He wanted to use his IRA to invest in his hedge fund. And I got tasked with the assignment. I did some research. I was blown away. I could not believe that you were able to use your IRA to do alternative assets like hedge funds or real estate, gold, cryptos. So that's basically what triggered me to quit practicing law and
Mhm.
started IRA Financial because my attitude was, hey, if I am a tax lawyer, I have a master's in tax law, pretty smart guy, sophisticated investor, and I had no idea that you can use your IRA to invest in real estate or other investments, then there's got to be millions and millions of Americans I could help.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the average person thinks you go to a financial advisor, they take your IRA, they diversify it into 13, 18 different stocks, and you're golden. And then they shun
Yeah,
away from us real estate guys. They say, "No, don't listen to your realtor or your friend that buys thousands of apartment doors. They don't know what they're doing." But
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
what the
they kept.
mainstream, right?
Yeah, Brad. Like they would say, "Oh, it's risky." I'd even have friends and colleagues say, "Are you crazy? You can't start a company and let people do real estate with their IRA. That's so risky." This
Mhm.
is going back 2008, 2009. You gotta invest in mutual funds. That's crazy. You can't do that. It's super risky. Well,
Right.
they were obviously wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's some small caveats I'm sure we'll get into, but I mean, you can buy anything from, like you were saying, gold, crypto. You can be part of a fundraise for a gold mine if you want to.
Mhm,
But yeah, it's
mhm.
this is why I'm excited to have you on today so we can discuss all these things.
Absolutely.
I'm making notes because there's a few things I want to touch on that I personally have interest in, like inherited IRAs.
Mhm.
See your thoughts on that. I know some people hate them, some people love them.
No, and listen, inherited IRAs, they're good and bad. The bad is, unfortunately, someone passed for you to get it.
Yeah.
So that's the negative. But the way inherited IRAs rules work are pretty simple. There's two categories. If you're a spouse, the IRA just goes to you automatically,
Mhm.
okay? And the IRA basically becomes yours. And then you follow your age in terms of deciding if you have to take required minimum distributions at age 73. And then there's non-spousal, which basically under the new Treasury regulations, you fall into two categories, whether you have to take it all out over 10 years or you have a life expectancy to take it out. And it depends on your age and the age difference between you and the decedent. But essentially, it's either 10 years or your lifespan. And then basically, if it's a Roth, which is an after-tax IRA, generally it would come out tax-free. And if it's a pre-tax IRA, you would have to pay tax on what you pull out.
Hmm. And can you tell us the difference between a
But you
seasoned
can,
and non-seasoned?
yeah. So IRAs, basically, the way to look at IRAs, individual IRAs, there's two categories. There's pre-tax and Roth. So if you look at a traditional IRA, it's a pre-tax IRA, and generally you get a tax deduction for putting money into an IRA, 7,000 or 8,000 if you're over 50. There's some income limitations on your ability to take a deduction. But if you are under the age of 59 and a half, the IRA is technically not seasoned. You have to pay tax and a 10% penalty if you pull the money out. But unlike a 401k, you can pull the money out anytime you want. There's no
Mm-hmm.
trigger and event rules. Whereas if you work at a company, you generally have to leave the company or be over the age of 59 and a half to get access to your money. Now, if it's seasoned, once you're over the age of 59 and a half, you just pay tax on what you pull out. Now, Roth IRA, there's a 59 and a half and a 5-year rule, meaning for the Roth IRA to be seasoned, meaning tax-free, and after-tax IRA, meaning you don't get a tax deduction when making a Roth IRA contribution. But once you are over the age of 59 and a half and the Roth's been open 5 years, it's all tax-free, and that's a seasoned Roth IRA.
Okay. Yeah, like I said before we started recording here, I was a part of a group for a while that's all we discussed is inherited IRAs and seasoning versus non-seasoning and what you can and can't do with them. And we all just had a lot of fun building IRAs and buying some real estate and had a blast doing it, working with the tax advantages of using those.
Yeah, it's I think, I mean, as a tax lawyer, it's the best legal tax shelter out there. And the beautiful thing is IRAs were created in 1974, okay, with ERISA, just when 401ks were created. There's about 65 million IRAs out there, over 13 trillion in IRAs. So it's the largest source of savings in the United States. Now, when IRAs were created, the IRS, Congress did not distinguish between IRAs that invested in stocks, for example, and IRAs that invested in real estate. Okay. There's only 3 things you can't do with an IRA. That's it. That's it. It's found under section 408 and 4975 of the tax code. Number 1, you can't buy life insurance. No big deal. Number 2, you can't buy collectibles like art. Okay. Thirdly, in the broadest category is found under Internal Revenue Code section 4975, and it says you cannot do anything with your IRA that in any way directly or indirectly, personally, benefits you or your lineal descendants, your parents, your children, your spouse, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, or any entities controlled. That means 50% or more by such persons. So the tax code doesn't say you can buy real estate or you can buy real estate in Texas or in France. It just has those 3 categories. So long as you don't violate life insurance, collectibles, or self-dealing conflict of interest transactions, you can do it. So you can buy residential real estate, commercial real estate, real estate in Texas, in Canada, in China. It doesn't matter. As long as you are not buying it from a lineal descendant or an entity you control, you're not selling it to a lineal descendant or an entity you control, you can do it. So it's very, very broad, very flexible, and very easy to do.
Yeah. So let's walk ourselves through let's just say you have a new IRA, or not this, you have a customer of yours that is a new real estate lender, let's say, and I, as an operator, am working with your client there. What are the steps for me and your client to be able to work together to get that real estate deal done through a company like yours? So
yeah, through IRA Financial. So it's super easy. Let's say I have a client, a hard money lender, right? Right, Brandon, keep it simple. You're doing a real estate deal, you need 200 grand. Okay, I have a client that has money in his IRA. It's sitting there, it's losing money in the stock market today. And you're like, okay, I'll give you 10% interest on the hard money. I need it for 18 months to do some development. My client's like, awesome, 10%, amazing. So he goes to IRA Financial, goes to our website or app, fills out an account. It takes 5 minutes. We do a KYC, it takes 24 hours to get the account approved. Then let's say the 200 grand is at Fidelity or Vanguard. We'll initiate the transfer. It's a tax-free transfer. Anytime you move money between the IRA world, it's all tax-free. If you go IRA to IRA, 401k to IRA, IRA to 401k, all tax-free. So it takes a couple of days. Let's say Vanguard sends the 200 grand to IRA Financial. Then my client has 2 options. They can lend the money directly to you and your entity, Brandon, and IRA Financial, as the custodian, would sign the loan documents on behalf of the IRA. Or the client has another option. They can do what's called a checkbook control, which I know you know about it. We talked about it offline. Is the IRA could invest in an LLC to give it limited liability protection, also privacy and more control. So let's say my client's like, I want to have more control. I don't want to have IRA Financial every time Brandon every month pays me my interest and principal. I don't want the custodian to get involved. It's a headache. It's annoying, too costly. I'm going to set up an IRA LLC. I'll have the LLC opened at any local bank. IRA Financial will do the LLC. I'll be the manager. I'll control it. The IRA will own it. So that's where all the interest goes tax-free back to the IRA. And I will have IRA Financial send the 200 grand to my LLC, which I manage. And then I, as the manager, will write a check or wire the money to Brandon. So now Brandon has the 200 grand. He's paying the interest over the next 18 months tax-free back to the LLC. And since the LLC is a pass-through entity, doesn't pay tax, right? It's a flow-through, disregarded entity. The IRA is the recipient of that income. But since the IRA is tax exempt, right, under 408 of the tax code, doesn't pay tax, it's a tax-free way that my client can lend you money, get a 10% rate of return and no tax. And also, let's say you were buddies, right? You're not disqualified persons. Let's say you're just friends or you meet at a bar, or even if you're brothers, sisters, aunts, uncle, cousins, you're not disqualified. He can help you out, get a nice healthy rate of return, all tax-free.
Mm-hmm. Wow, you just took how many pages of this book? 430 pages of your book here and cut
Yeah.
it down to 3 minutes is pretty pretty awesome.
That's all it is. It's super
Yeah,
easy. Yeah,
yeah,
it's super easy. And for real estate investors, I mean, like you guys need cash and you want to borrow money, and there's a lot of cash on the sidelines, would love good rate of returns. And the interest, if you lend money to people with non-retirement money, you pay ordinary income tax on the interest, right?
right.
Which is one of the negatives of lending money is you got to deal with ordinary income. It's not capital gains. But if you lend money in an IRA, a Roth IRA, a 401k, it's tax-free.
Awesome. And I don't know much about it, and it could have just been a rumor, but there was a deal with Biden where he was trying to get rid of that checkbook option. How far did he get with that, and did it change anything at all?
Yeah, so this is going back, without getting into politics, this is back to 2021 with the Build Back Better bill when the Biden won the presidency and the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate. So, the left wing of the Democratic Party got a little bit carried away, and they tried to push all these crazy policies, including, stopping IRAs from doing things and, all these wealth taxes. Obviously, it never went anywhere. It was just kind of some hopeful, things that the progressives tried to have incorporated in the Build Back Better bill. It never made in. It wasn't even a serious. It was never a serious risk of being law, but it was there, and it got tossed aside pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, didn't look too much into it after I heard about it, but so another question I have is let's say we've got two friends that both have IRAs and they want to go into an acquisition together. So I want my IRA to benefit from a purchase, but you can't be the beneficiary of it. So you've got to get an IRA loan, which then needs to be a partnership of a certain percentage with the partnership agreement. That way, the disbursement at the end is I'm sorry, I'm
Pro
trying to
rata.
think. Yeah, pro rata. So explain that one because a buddy of mine has done that a few
Okay.
times, and I know there can
Mhm.
be some complications there.
Yeah. So without getting into the complex partnership allocation rules under like Section 704, basically, most cases, your IRA could partner with anyone's IRA, even a parent's IRA, a child's IRA. Remember, I went into the disqualified person rules.
Right.
Parents, children, spouse, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, any entities controlled 50% or more. Well, a retirement account is technically not a disqualified person today. So my IRA and my spouse's IRA could co-invest. My IRA could invest with Brandon. No problem. We're not disqualified. Could my IRA invest with me personally? It's a little bit of a gray area. It's potentially possible if you both fund. So if I had 100 grand in my IRA and I had 100 grand personally, I set up this LLC. If I funded simultaneously under case law, that entity only becomes disqualified once funded. So as long as I don't add any more money to that entity and all income gains and losses are allocated pro rata, meaning 50-50 in this case, it should not be a prohibited transaction. But going back to your example, Brandon, you and your friend could set up an LLC. You or your friend could invest personal retirement accounts. And generally, in most cases, it would go pro rata. Pro rata means allocations based off ownership interest. So if I own 80%, I get 80% of the profits, distributions, or losses. You own 20%, so on and so forth. Can you play around and get sort of aggressive where you're allocated the capital gains, I'm allocated ordinary income since I'm an IRA? Difficult. It may not satisfy economic substance rule, substantial economic effect. It's very risky. It's more advanced. It's something that you should talk to a tax attorney about because it's definitely more complex. But in most cases, people are not looking to do that. They just really want to focus on making the investment, doing a joint venture with a colleague, a family member, whether one or both parties are using retirement accounts, no problem. It's generally the income and gains and losses will flow pro rata.
Hmm. And so I thought I understood it as not pro rata based off of ownership. It was pro rata based off of input, meaning if I had, let's say, 5,000, I funded the earnest money or whatever for down payment on owner finance or whatever it is, that pro rata, and then the other partner brought in 100, 150,000, that pro rata difference had to be denoted in the LLC documents saying that my IRA put in X, which means I get a very small percentage versus the other IRA gets a much larger percentage. But is that not the case?
Yeah, that's 100% right. Yeah, the
Oh, okay.
operating agreement generally will have an exhibit, which is the cap table,
Mm,
which will show exactly everyone's name, the partner's name, the amount they contribute, and then the percentage ownership. So if you put in 5,000, I put in 95,000, the LLC agreement will show 5% for you, 95% for me.
mm.
And then if you look in the operating agreement and you go to the net allocation of profit section or the distribution section, it's generally going to correspond to ownership.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Well, so far we're talking about all the good of having IRAs. What are some bads that can, or some cons that can happen when maybe not knowing what you're doing or taking advice from the wrong people when going and using your IRA for do some sort of an investment like real estate?
Well, I don't know if it's a con because you can get bad advice from a investment advisor like a Bernie Madoff, whether use retirement accounts or not. I think the biggest obstacles for using retirement accounts to do alternative assets like a self-directed IRA is understanding the rules. So I went through the prohibited transaction rules, which actually aren't that difficult to
Right.
understand. The second rules for real estate investors is around this four-letter word called UBIT,
Hmm.
unrelated business income tax.
Right.
And UBIT's a tax that does get imposed when a retirement account uses a non-recourse loan to buy real estate. So I use the reference of a non-recourse loan. Why? Because you cannot personally guarantee an obligation of your IRA. So you can't do a traditional mortgage with your IRA. Like if I had an IRA with 100K and I put in 100K of cash and I need to borrow 100K from a bank, I have to get a non-recourse loan because I'm not allowed to personally guarantee that loan. Since I'm a disqualified person, I can't personally guarantee the loan of my IRA. So I have to get what's called a non-recourse loan, which generally means you have to put down about 35% plus. You may pay some higher points. So that's the first obstacle to leverage in a real estate deal is it has to be a non-recourse loan if you're the one that's involved and it's your IRA. Second thing is this UBIT tax. So once you get through the non-recourse loan, the way this UBIT tax works in an IRA, there's an exception for 401ks, is going back to my example, I put 100K in of cash, I borrow 100K from a bank, 200K, and it generates $10,000 of net income after depreciation, after expenses, so on and so forth. That means based off this example, since I use 50% debt, 50% equity, because 50% of the debt, that means 50% of the net profits out of the 10,000, 5,000, which is the allocation of the 50%,
Hmm.
is subject to this UBIT tax. And the UBIT tax can go as high as 37% at a very low income threshold, approximately 15,000 bucks. So it's a very painful tax
Yeah.
because it's a high tax and it's at a low threshold. There are ways to get around it. Number one, 401ks, there's an exemption. You can do a blocker with a C Corp. In fact, Brandon, a lot of real estate deals from an accounting standpoint lose money in the first several years
Hmm.
because of the depreciation, interest deductions, expenses. So the good news is you can use those losses to carry them forward to offset income in later years.
Hmm.
So it doesn't actually bite as hard as you would think. But I would think the biggest negative of using a self-directed IRA in real estate is UBIT. I don't think it's really like fraud because those bad people are out there, whether you're using retirement account or personal money. It's more the U-bit, which really only applies to IRAs and real estate using leverage.
Hmm. Or that's their little slap on the wrist if you do a prohibited transaction or something that you were ill-advised on, is they'll slap a UBIT tax on there.
Right. If you do a privilege transaction, yeah, they'll tax you. The good news is, like, we've been doing this 15 years. If you work with the right people, you're not going to do a privilege transaction because we'll
Right.
stop you. We'll make sure you don't.
Right.
We've never had in 15 years, we've never had a client ever, found to do a privilege transaction. So
Yeah.
I think it's just working with the right people, doing your diligence. Now, there's so many good companies out there in our space. There's a lot of smart people. The information's out there. Just make sure you're working with the right people, and you'll be fine.
Right. Right. Well, you brought up 401k, and I don't know a whole lot of anything about it, but I hear it's amongst my IRA buddies that's becoming more popular buzzword. What are the benefits of having a 401k as a real estate investor? And then on top of that, being a 401k, it has to be coming from an employer. So how do you, as a
Correct.
self-employed entrepreneur, get a 401k?
Yeah, excellent question. So there's something called the solo 401k, and I actually wrote 2 books on it. Solo 401k is like a mini 401k. It's kind of like a more advanced SEP IRA. So you're correct. It has to be set up by a business, but the business could be a sole proprietorship. It could be, I have a client that's Santa Claus, for 5 weeks a year in a mall. He makes like 3-4 grand. He's self-employed. That's a
Yeah,
business. It doesn't
right.
have to be Apple. So it could be a single member LLC, an LLC, a C Corp, an S Corp, a partnership. As long as you have some self-employment income, it could be $100. Okay. You can set up a solo K. Now, for real estate investors, this is the holy grail. Why? Because every real estate investor wants to use leverage. Why not? Other people's money, OPM. So, with a solo K, under section 514C9 of the tax code, if a solo 401k or a 401k uses a non-recourse loan to buy real estate, there is no UBIT. So all that stuff I talked about, UBIT,
Hmm.
37% tax, ugly 4-letter word, does not apply to solo 401ks and 401ks that do real estate with leverage. So, out of my 25,000 clients, we probably have, like, I don't know, 30-40% are in solo Ks, and a lot of them are real estate investors
Hmm.
because they want not only to put away a lot of money and save money, because a solo K you can put away in 2025 $70,000 or 77,500 if you're over 50, or
Wow.
82,750 if you're between the age of 60 and 63, where an IRA is only going to give you, 7 or 8,000 if you're over 50. So you get high contributions, you get that exemption from the UBIT tax, which is huge for real estate investors, and you can borrow up to $50,000 or 50% of your account value, whatever's less, and use that for any purpose personally. So there's a lot of great features. If I could, I would put every single one of my clients in the solo 401k. The problem, not everyone's self-employed, right?
Right.
So let's say you have a W-2 job, you're retired, you don't have any self-employment income, you can't set up a solo K, you're
Hmm.
relegated to the IRA world.
Yeah. So if it's a non-solo traditional 401k, the rules sound like they're a smidge different. Is that in regards to the allowable contribution per year, or is it how they're allowed to use it?
Yeah, it's mostly so employee deferrals for whether you work at Apple or you're self-employed, generally the same rules. You're going to be allowed to put away 23,000 or 31,500
Mhm.
if you're over 50. So those are the same whether you're self-employed or you work for Apple. The difference is your investment ability. If you work for Apple, you're not going to be able to buy real estate. They're just not going to
Yeah.
let you. Why? 401ks have what's called fiduciary rules. They're subject to ERISA. IRAs are not. So if you're Tim Cook and you're the CEO of Apple, you have too much risk to let Brandon and Adam buy cryptos or real estate with their 401k. It just
Mhm.
doesn't make any sense. Now, if you're a small business, you're not going to sue yourself. Or if you have 2 employees, you're not going to be worried if Joe or Jane are going to sue you because you let them invest in a real estate deal. But for Apple or Google, they're too big. They're going to force you to buy publicly traded assets, whereas smaller 401ks will allow you to do alternative assets. So it's not so much It's a IRS rule. It's more just a risk reward proposition for the employer of the business.
Got it. Okay. I'm learning some stuff here. Okay.
Yeah, that's fun part.
So back here a second ago, so we talked about the higher contribution IRAs between 7 and 8,000 roughly, depending on age, and the solo 401k. You said upwards of 50 to 60 or 60 plus?
70 and 77.5 if you're over 50.
70. So I misheard that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's broken down into employee deferrals and profit sharing. So you can get there quick, or there's something called a mega backdoor Roth. So if you're a Roth lover like I am, like all my money is in Roth. I wrote a book, in God We Trust and Roth We Prosper. Um, it's to me the best legal tax shelter out there. I'm not as worried as I like deductions, don't get me wrong, but if you let's say you're in the 30% tax bracket, if you put away 30,000 bucks, it's a $9,000 tax deduction benefit. That's good, don't get me wrong. But my goal is over the next 20, 30 years, I'm going to generate a lot more tax-free growth than that 9,000 bucks. So I'm all about Roth versus tax deduction. So with a solo K, you have the ability in 2025 to put away up to $70,000 in a Roth, dollar for dollar. So let's say you made 80, 70,000 in a self-employment business, you can dump, and you don't need the money because you also have a side W-2 or you have other income, passive income. You can put it all in a Roth. And the advantage is, yeah, you don't get a tax deduction, but if you take that 70,000 bucks and invest it, the gains are tax-free.
Right.
Whereas if you did it in a personal account, you're going to pay tax.
Right.
So the solo K is super, super powerful. You really can take advantage of the power of compounding returns. The rule 72, it's a very important rule. If you could 9%, if you generate 9% rate of return annually, every 8 years, you'll double your money. So the rule 72 is you just multiply, right? So if you can generate a 10% rate of return, your money will double every 7.2 years, right? So on and so forth. So that is the source of wealth. That's how smart people get rich.
Well,
Yeah, this is unfortunately like, listen, I'm an educated guy. I have a college degree. Obviously, I have a law degree. I have a master's in tax law. I was in school till I was like 25 years old. Like, I didn't learn once, not once, about IRAs or compounded return. Not once.
right.
It's crazy. I
Yeah.
learned all kinds of other junk. But like this is the holy grail. This is how the world works. And to not teach people about compounded returns is so, so disappointing.
Yeah. So you have written, and I don't know how much time you had, but you've written 9 books. We've discussed
Yeah.
2 of them so
Yeah.
far, CheckBook IRA, and now well, I didn't catch the name of the book, but we were talking about the Mega Backdoor
Yeah.
Roth. What is, let's
Yeah.
touch on another one of your books one of your favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I just wrote a book about a year ago, really about mastering, the self-directed IRA. It's a shorter book. It's probably about 150 pages, and it's literally everything you need to know about. Do I have it here? Yeah, I have it here. It's mastering the self-directed IRA. It's literally everything you need to know about the checkbook control and the self-directed IRA. It goes through all the rules, examples. I've tried to like keep it super simple. And the way I structured it is the beginning, it's all the basics, and then there's more advanced topics as you go. So you can skip around. If you know the basics, you can kind of just skip to the middle or the end of the book, which tackles like UBIT and prohibited transactions and how to use your Roth IRA to invest in a startup like Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, he has a $4 billion Roth IRA approximately. He was the founder of PayPal with Elon Musk, Palantir with Alex Karp, and also the first investor into Facebook. He invested $500,000 in a Roth IRA in Facebook, and it turned it into like $300 million, tax free. So there's ways to do it. Okay,
Yeah.
and this is what this book does. And
Yeah.
again, the smart people know this.
Right. Holy Moses. Okay. So I got to get another one of
Yeah.
your books. Okay.
I'll send you one. It's okay. But it's out there. All this info is out there. It's unfortunately no one teaches it to us, right?
Right.
We learn all kinds of junk at school. Like how could senior in high school or just a senior in college not take like one course about retirement savings and compounded returns and finance? It's crazy.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. I mean, my daughter's in her first year of college right now, and it's just all this BS stuff. I mean, she's
Yeah.
in there for astrophysics, so she's doing some cool
Wow.
physics stuffs, and she loves that. But there's not an ounce of required financial anything in there,
Yeah.
and so it's reliant on me and my wife to get that across to her. But it's it's sad. That's probably why they're trying to
It's
get rid of the school board association. So um,
Yeah, Department of Education. Yeah,
yeah.
we're failing our kids. And again, I'm like a perfect example. Like I, I was at the top of like the legal field, working at literally some of the largest law firms, and I had no idea that you can do this stuff. I thought you had to buy stocks with your IRA or 401k. I really didn't understand compounded returns.
Right.
My parents were just like, whatever you do, Adam, you're working in New York City, you're spending a lot of money, just max out your 401k. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I guess that's what I have to do. I'll max it out. But I didn't really understand the benefits of doing it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because there's so many, all these financial advisors are so incentivized, commission based that they're just littering our feed with all their mumbo jumbo. That's all we hear. It's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
and again, I have a lot of friends that are RIAs, and a lot of them do great stuff. But yeah, we've run into a lot of RIAs. We'll tell clients, no, you don't want to buy real estate. You shouldn't buy gold. All you should do is just diversify between publicly traded securities and bonds. That's the way you do it. And unfortunately, it's self-serving.
Yeah. Well, on that subject, so you can invest in hard assets like gold. The IRA purchased it. Where is that gold housed? Is it supposed to be somewhere specific, or how does that work?
Yeah, so under Section 408M of the Internal Revenue Code, the precious metal must be held in the physical possession of a U.S. trustee, which is deemed a depository. So unfortunately, you're not allowed to hold gold in your house in
Mhm.
an IRA. You could non-retirement account, sure. But if it's an IRA, it has to be in the depository. And unfortunately, this goes back. Remember when IRAs were created in 1972, we're just coming off the gold standard, right? So the government was very focused in learning about where all the gold was. And that's why they required the depository. But we're 50 plus years beyond that. Um, Unfortunately, we're still stuck with that same rule.
Right. Yeah. And in crypto, there is no asset outside of your key. So do they are they trying to make any changes to that rule or that allowable investment or
Great question. It's a great question. So we have a crypto platform on our app where you can buy and sell cryptos in your IRA directly,
Mhm.
tax free. Some people obviously want to hold the private key, and there's a case called McNulty v. Commissioner. It came out in 21, and unfortunately, the McNulty case was a gold case actually, where the McNultys held gold in their personal possession, and the tax court said, you lose. You did a privileged transaction. But the way the ruling was drafted is it made some very broad pronouncements and basically said any asset your IRA owns, you cannot have unfettered command over. So when you look at a crypto private wallet, if you have a nano ledger and you hold it in your pocket,
Mhm.
do you have unfettered command over it since you have the private key?
Mhm.
So it's a little bit of a gray area, even though there's blockchain and the government it can easily determine where if those cryptos were moved to which wallets. Right now in our industry, we're still suggesting people buy and sell and hold cryptos on an exchange. And if you take it off an exchange because you want to hold a private key, there's gray area. It's unclear whether that would be a privileged transaction.
Yeah. So no case law saying yay or nay. Interesting. What sounds like, I mean, to your
Yeah,
point, the nano wallets, I mean, that is your physical asset per se.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
gray. There's differences obviously between gold and digital assets, right? Hard to trace where gold is. Digital assets because of blockchain, it will show the transfer of the crypto. It may not say exactly if it went to Brandon or Jay, but it's going to show the movement of the wallet. So the IRS has more oversight over cryptos, believe it or not, than gold or cash. But still, based off the McNulty case and the definition of unfettered control or command, it's unclear how the courts would rule.
Yeah. Interesting. What is something that we're not thinking about well, let's do 401ks because you prefer solo 1Ks. What are some
Yeah.
people that are getting into solo and 4K investments need to know before getting into it, or or what's being taught that isn't necessarily something that they should be doing? Like what's the go-to avenue for the solo 401k investor?
I think the biggest problem is education. There's so many people out there that are in the gig economy that don't even know the solo K exists. So a
Yeah.
lot of people think that because they're self-employed, they don't have the opportunity of having their own retirement plan. And that's false. In fact, they have a more robust opportunity to save than someone who works at Apple. So if I worked at Apple and I'm under 50, I can put away, let's say, 20 around 24,000 bucks. Okay.
Mhm.
Whereas let's say I made 100K at Apple, I could put away around 24K. If I made 100K and I was self-employed, I can put away as an employee deferral around 24K, 23.5, and I can then do a profit sharing of up to 20 or 25%, depending on if my entity is a corp or an LLC. Assuming it's an LLC, on 100K, I can put away 20%. That's another 20K. So because I'm self-employed, I can put away around 43,500. Whereas if I worked at Apple, I'd only be able to put away around 23.5.
Mhm.
So you can actually save more by being self-employed because of the profit sharing allocation. Whereas Apple may only give me a 3 or 4% match, where I can do a 20 to 25% match profit sharing in my solo plan. So there's so much more saving opportunities if you're self-employed, but unfortunately, people don't understand it. They're not told about it. The advisors aren't educated themselves, and there's a void. And people are leaving cash on the table because not only is the money going to Uncle Sam instead of putting it in your retirement account where it could then grow tax-free based off compounded returns, you're losing the ability to save for your future. And Social Security, no matter what any president says, they're going to have to figure this out in the next 10 years because it's going to go bankrupt
Yeah.
by 2032 or so. So either they're probably going to have to raise the retirement age or do something because there's not going to be any money left.
Right. Raise the retirement age as we're all starting to pass away a little bit earlier than we used to due to our poor food and health industry. That sounds like a good plan. Or
Yeah.
or they may do it intentionally, so you don't or take from
So,
it.
right. So I don't know if people aren't watching this, Brandon, you're wearing a really interesting t-shirt. It says make my own luck. So
Mhm.
that's America, right? If you just want to rely on the government, good luck.
Right.
That's not a secret to success. If you want to be successful in this country and be part of the American dream, then you got to build for yourself. You got to work hard, make your own luck. And that's also retiring. You can't rely on Social Security. It may not be there. It's not going to be enough to live. It doesn't even cover the rise of inflation. And the US retirement system is literally rigged in our favor because it takes advantage of compounded returns. So as long as you do these three things, and that's it, I'll leave with these three things. You start as early as you can making contributions. Okay. You're consistent. You just try to make it each year. Even if you have a tough year financially, put 500 bucks away, put 100 bucks away, 200, just keep your good habits going.
Mhm.
And third, the easy part, just trust the process. Just relax. Watch your money grow. And within 10, 15, 20, 30 years, when you need it, it will be there for you. And you're not going to have to worry and you can enjoy the rest of your life.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be my main reel for this show. That was awesome. Those are perfect exit there. I marked
Yeah.
that on there, so we'll make that one
Good.
the perfect one.
Awesome.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate you coming on. What's the best way people can reach out to you?
Awesome. You can go to irafinancial.com, irafinancialgroup.com. Just search for us. There's a lot of great information out there about self-directed IRAs, retirements, compounded returns. Just there's good stuff. It's easy to do. You don't need to be intimidated. We have, for example, like we have 100 employees, and they're all super well versed on how this stuff works. So you can call in, you can chat in, you can contact us. It's easy, it's quick, it's not expensive, and take control. Like
Yeah,
make your own luck.
right.
I love
And
that.
yeah,
Make your own luck.
and you briefly mentioned an app. Is this for customers only, or can people find your app and download it and utilize it in some form or fashion?
Yeah, you can download it. We're actually coming up with end of April a whole updated app. But yeah, on our website there's all kinds of blogs and information. I've written 9 books. You can find them on Amazon. Our YouTube channel is amazing. There's free content at IRA Financial. Just search it. And you can just watch videos and learn as much as you can, or you can call us and we'll answer your questions free of
Yeah,
charge.
perfect. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I'm definitely going to jump on the YouTube channel and learn some things as well. But man, I appreciate it.
Awesome.
This has been awesome for me. Well, hopefully for the audience too. But I probably
Thank you
learned
so
more.
much.
Yeah. Thank you much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you, Brandon.
All right. We'll see you.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed today's content. I want to thank you all for listening in. And as the great Les Brown stated, if you are not pursuing your dreams, you are literally committing spiritual suicide. We'll catch you on the flip side.